I can get you to a bug, but you keep climbing. He gon' end up like the ones that he keep rhyming.
I've decided to write this review without mentioning that album. Not that the comparison to that album doesn't make sense, but having to compare this album to that album all the time would be tiring and boring and make me fall asleep writing this. I've already had trouble staying awake after my stupid decision to have a 5 PM shower, and now I keep dozing off and making my Word document go blah, 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 like this. It's been a minute since Kanye convinced the suburban rap fanatic populace that gospel and hip-hop fusion was an untapped stroke of genius. Credit to those who managed to find a workable intersection point between historically African-American genres and conjured something that means something special to people of every path of upbringing. As of recent, we've been hearing the more jittery and abstract takes on this concept via who I like to call the people making music of the future. If you're the type of person that watches this channel on the regular, you'll probably have an idea of who I'm talking about. Otherwise, there's a good chance these all sound like villains in a Codename Kids Next Door episode. Standing on the Corner, Slauson Malone, Xenia Rubinos, Navy Blue, Earl Sweatshirt, and in this case, the hip-hop group Slums, whose member Mike has been the most noted for drowsily streaming his consciousness over looping in volatile soul and gospel samples, making for some of the most interesting hip-hop of the decade. The way this man writes lyrics reads like a psychiatrist session that weaves itself together with the images of a mind that's really trying to gather everything together frantically as it's falling apart. And then occasionally one of those images will really stick out to you, and they only ever need to be a few words long, like living life chopped and screwed, a line with such historical and cultural importance, but also one that so vividly demonstrates life since his mother's passing. Oh yeah, I suppose I should have mentioned that. This album is about grieving, coming to terms and moving forward. An easy moral to pin down, I'm sure you'll agree, but a difficult one to photograph quite like he does here. Silence got my dome racing, looking through the book for an open page, blessing and a curse when they throw you off the slave ship. The songs here weave in and out of emotions, which seems like an odd capability given Mike's deadpan voice that slurs past words like a sack of bricks on rough concrete, but given the way that these instrumentals pop like heated blueberries, there's no doubting that there's a streak of specific colour through each of the 20 different vignettes here. Vocal snippets flash through the album like overwhelming memories, one of which is an actual voicemail from Mike's mother, the final thing you hear on the album. It's Like Basketball features perhaps the most audibly pained Mike, as he genuinely sounds like he's in the midst of pushing through tears. Ain't No Love sounds warm and passionate, but the warm piano makes it sound distant as well. Planet is the biggest dose on the track listing of everything's gonna be alright in the end type optimism on the album. Stargazer Part 3 blares with such a valiant fanfare, as Mike sounds the most assured and clear, enunciating every syllable. Moments of closure like these are some of the best, really. Granted, it takes a scrapbook's worth to get there, a bunch of instrumentals that just sputter and smoke like a broken engine, but artistically that makes sense. I get why they're all there. And these tracks skip because, like Mike mentions himself, when you're really thinking about this in times of grieving, it's very much like a mental roadblock. Coping isn't an immediate process, and neither should be listening to an album this aligned with that. And yet, with that said, one of the most impactful moments on Tears of Joy is one of those wordless interludes, or at least it is wordless, until a read aloud excerpt from the film Sankofa slips in last minute and describes not that there was ever a death, but that instead a big buzzard swooped down and carried her back to Africa. Mike's hypnagogic approach to hip-hop has been building up to a moment like this. I'm used to hearing him joined by other voices, but now he finds himself as the sole voice of his art, center stage and facing the grief of his mother's passing head on, yet sounding more bittersweet and optimistic than it is wading in mud. It'd be easy to give this a pass based on concept alone, but Mike's choice of language has always been so precise and vivid, with each instrumental so telling of his coping process that this album is so intensely emotive. 8 out of 10.